good Tuesday morning. Really interesting story out of the NFL yesterday with Calvin Ridley and the gambling suspension. More hullabaloo between the Players Association and Major League Baseball. The Knicks won 2 games in a row, and it means absolutely nothing, even with Julius Randle scoring almost 50 last night in the win. But I'm sure we start with Calvin Ridley and a year suspension for using a gambling app on his phone when he wasn't with the team, betting on his own team to win. The NFL is going to protect that man as much as they are in bed with gambling sites like FanDuel, like we are. They're going to protect it. But I do think there's a big difference between a guy who's not with the team betting a parlay on his team to win, obviously, than someone who is point shaving. That's a big difference between those two things. Good morning, Boomer. How are you?
Hey, good morning, G. And I'm not surprised at all by any of this. Just a matter that that Calvin Ridley is the first to get caught.
Yeah.
And he got caught because of the way that the NFL is working with their gambling partners to make sure that players are not involved. So the system, the way they have it set up, at least in this case, has worked. So players are warned before the season starts. They're warned every time they walk into their building. There are signs all over the place. And this goes back to when I was playing. And remember, when I was playing, we couldn't go on cruise ships. We couldn't go to Vegas.
That's
right. We couldn't
right.
go to Atlantic City for appearances. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't have any appearance of impropriety whatsoever. But now the almighty dollar speaks, and the NFL is now in bed with all of these different gambling sites, as you said, and so are we, by the way, at FanDuel here. And we always,
Hey, I was just at a FanDuel appearance up at Mohegan Sun this past weekend.
Right, but you're not a football, an active football player like Calvin Ridley is. Now, remember, Calvin Ridley left the Atlanta Falcons in the middle of the season due to some sort of mental health situation. Now, I don't know what that mental health situation was. Maybe it was gambling. Maybe it was something else.
Well, he tweeted out, I bet $1,500 total. I don't have a gambling problem. Now, I don't know if that is the truth or not, but he was trying to get ahead of that yesterday with his own Twitter account.
Yeah, I know. I don't know. But what I'm concerned about is I'm more concerned about the integrity of the game, how the NFL went about finding out about Calvin Ridley, and how the NFL came down hard on Calvin Ridley, which should be a warning shot across the bow. Now, listen. How many players have been suspended for drug use? How many players have been suspended for domestic violence? How many players have been suspended and put in jail for gun violence? I mean, this is like right in the midst of all of that stuff. There's no players shaving points or throwing games or any of that stuff. And believe you me, the NFL watches every game closely. They know exactly what's going on, much like the NBA is, much like Major League Baseball is, and much like I'm sure professional soccer is and hockey.
Yeah.
So they're all on top of this. So when this came out yesterday, everybody was like, oh, freaking out over the whole thing. I'm like, I'm not surprised by this at all. This has been going on for years and years and years. It just so happens that the stupidity here is that he used
his own account, his own name.
And that's one of the reasons why he was found out. So there have been guys for years and years and years and years that have had bookies.
Of course. To me, use your buddy's account, use your brother's account, use whoever's account, and then you'll be okay if you really want to gamble. But to me, the punishment of a year suspension has everything to do with the NFL telling everybody, do not mess around with this. Don't even touch it. Because Calvin Ridley betting on the Falcons in a 16 parlay when he's not even around the team is not worthy of a year suspension, in my opinion.
Oh, he's an active player and he knows the rules.
I know. I understand that
for a year, and he's going to lose $11
million. But
the
integrity of the game never really fell in question with this particular thing. What the NFL is trying to do is make sure that other stuff like this doesn't happen. And as you said, a shot across the bow telling people if you mess around with this at all, I mean, just imagine if someone was caught point shaving, they'd be banned for life.
It's precedent. So here's your first player that has been caught by the system. And it's a pretty significant penalty, and I believe that the penalty is worth the crime because, you cannot have players betting on games, win, lose, draw, parlay,
There's a
injured.
difference, though. There is a difference.
I'm sorry. I'm just
if
telling
you're betting on your team to win or betting on your team to lose, there's two different
things. You can say the same thing about Pete Rose back in the day.
But if you're with
he's
your
betting
team
on
and
his
you're not
to
with
win.
your team, there's a difference.
Look, there's
Yes, there is. It's a massive, egregious thing if you're with the team, betting on them to lose, and then you're actively participating in that team to lose. That's a huge problem.
The moment you sign an NFL contract, you are entering into an agreement, understanding the rules in order for you to play. I'm sorry, that's just the way it is.
But you can't tell me there's not a difference between betting on your team to win and betting on your team to lose.
I don't care if he bets or not. It's just winning or losing. Betting is betting, and betting on games is a no-no, and it is inappropriate. It's every player knows it. They warn them over and over and over again. And like I said, the stupidity here is the fact that he used his own name on his phone and his web and on an app. I mean, like, there's so many other ways around it, which I'm sure is happening anyway. Like, you think I was born yesterday?
Sure.
You know, I think this is going on and hasn't been going on. Of course it has.
Well, I'm
not shocked by any of it.
Well, I mean, the stuff that people want to know is there anybody out there that is betting on their team to lose while they're playing in games and then doing stuff?
Well, that's why I said the NFL.
Like that's really what people want to know.
Yeah, but
that's gamblers want to know. That's real integrity stuff.
Yeah, I mean, like if Tom Brady, I'm just using Tom Brady because I know it's ridiculous to even think that Tom Brady would even do something like this. But yeah, if it's 3rd and 9, you're in the fourth quarter, and you're up by 10, and you have a 13-point spread on the game.
Yeah,
and you throw it over somebody's head, and then you punt it to the other team. Then I could say yes. But again, the NFL follows this stuff and watches this stuff. And in this particular case, the system works to catch one of their players using one of their, one of the apps on his phone. I'm not shocked by it. Like the way everybody reacts to this, like the newspapers. Oh my God! It's Roger Goodell's worst nightmare. They knew about potential problems.
No,
like this.
I mean this is what the worst nightmare is if that Stephen Ross stuff was true. That's your worst nightmare.
Well, that's another thing. That's another.
That to me is a far bigger story if that ended up being true than
could
Calvin Ridley putting in a parlay on his.
I mean, could you imagine if Stephen Ross, told his coach, "Hey, tank a game," and then somehow somebody connected with Stephen Ross was betting on the other team to beat the Dolphins. Now you got
that is the worst nightmare.
Yeah. Now you got really big problems.
Right,
but
of course.
I again, like I told you, I'm not surprised by any of this.
Yeah.
I'm not going to overreact to it. It's a big deal because it's the first player that's been caught by the system. And the system is obviously working because, the NFL has told its partners, hey, look, if there's somebody betting on your platform, we need to know about it, and we need to know about it in a hurry. Now, again, I go back to November. He quit for some mental reasons. I don't know what those mental reasons are.
Yeah, there was a lot going on. He missed a couple games, and he came back, and then he was gone for the rest of the season. Yeah, I remember
and now he's tweeting out that I'm going to be okay. I'm like, jeez. I mean, you obviously have some sort of problem, and you can't control it. So maybe it is a gambling addiction. Maybe there's some other addiction going on in his life. Maybe there's some other pressures or stresses coming from somewhere else. Who knows? Every person is different. Every person has a different story and a backstory behind them. But I just, it's not surprising to me.
Yeah, well, I don't think any. I mean,
you know how many guys go to Vegas anyway? And now you got an NFL team in Vegas. You got an NHL hockey team in Vegas. How long before they put an NBA basketball team in Vegas? I mean, look, let's face it. Guys go to these and look at this is just another Alabama wide receiver getting in trouble.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that the story is or the question is, are you surprised by it? I mean, I think really what it is it hypocritical for the NFL to come down hard on a player when they're in bed deep with gambling sites? I mean, it's one of those things.
Not betting. Roger Goodell's not betting on games.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, they're making a lot of money on that type of stuff. I mean that's really what the question is. Is suspending a player for a year for betting on a parlay for his team to win. I mean, does that sort of fit the NFL's gambling narrative these days, where everything is FanDuel this, FanDuel that, FanDuel this? And the other part about this too is so fantasy football, to me, has always been gambling. Like, I've played fantasy football. It's gambling. You put money in, whether it's DraftKings or FanDuel with the daily fantasy too. You put money in to a sporting event and you see what happens. There are a ton of NFL players that openly talk about who's on their fantasy team. I mean, that's another part of this that somehow slips through the cracks. It's just, to me, there's levels of this that are concerning. Calvin Ridley's story, to me, is not concerning. But he did break the rule. He broke the rule, and he's got to pay the piper for that.
Yes, he does. I mean,
but I'm just saying, as far as, you're talking about people freaking out about it. There's no reason to freak out about this. He put a measly parlay on his app away from the team. That does not question the integrity of the game. It
just kind of goes to show you how easy it is to do it.
Oh, yeah.
And how a guy like him could get caught up into it. And by the way, for years and years and years and years and years, if you're in Europe, you can bet on anything. And they've never had an issue. I'm sure there have been issues. We just don't know about them.
Oh, yeah.
But they've been doing this for years and years and years. And in London, you can go in there and bet on anything, any game, anything you want.
Sure.
Who's going to be the next president of the United States, for God's sake?
Yeah, absolutely.
I can't come fast enough. But I just, my thing is it's everywhere. Okay, Calvin Ridley made a mistake. He's going to pay dearly for that mistake. It's going to cost him $11 million. He's going to miss this year. But if you think he's the only player that in somehow, some way is betting on a game somewhere throughout any of these major sports.
No, nobody believes that.
Look at what happened to Evander Kane.
Yeah.
I mean,
but that was all found out to be false, wasn't it?
Well, he's also got gambling issues too, but he had to go through all that stuff
that was a messy breakup too,
it was
right?
Also, yeah, but
there was a lot going
doesn't
on
mean
there.
the guy wasn't betting.
No, I mean, but they investigated.
But he may have been betting on something else. He may not have been betting on hockey.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the other thing. So you have the confluence of, the Knights out there in Vegas. You have right here the Jets and Giants. You have FanDuel Sportsbook right over here at the Meadowlands, at the MetLife. So, I mean, and eventually all this betting is going to come into the stadiums.
Of course.
And you already could do that off your phone anyway.
Yeah, you can. I mean, it's already in the stadiums. I mean, I did exactly that when I went to that Jets-Bills game. I was in the stadium, and I was betting on the game.
So here you go. Here's the shot across the player's bow. The players now all see what could happen to them. And, we're not talking about chump change here. We're talking about an $11 million salary that he had. And a number of teams, by the way, were trying to trade for him last year. And to the Falcons' credit, they knew that was something going on with Calvin Ridley. And they would not trade him because they were trying to do the right thing. They were trying to get the player right, whatever was wrong with him. They were trying to get him right. And they rebuffed all trades because they were like, you know what? Out of good conscience, we cannot trade a guy who we think has got some serious issues here.
Yeah, I will say, though, that the gambling, the NFL for many, many years, they tried to pretend like people weren't betting on the sport, that they didn't know that stuff was going on. They were trying to stay away from it. And now that they have accepted it and they are now partners with some of these big gambling sites, there have been two high-profile issues that have come up right away. And the Stephen Ross thing and, whatever Hugh Jackson was saying, which was very weird. But that whole deal that came out of the Brian Flores lawsuit and now this. So it is a very, very dicey, delicate situation. And the reason why the NFL came down so hard is because they want to make sure that this stuff doesn't happen in the future. But it's going to. Well, it's just a matter of what degree. If there's a wide receiver that's wide open on a 3rd and 8 trying to make a comeback and then whoops, he just drops the ball because he is on the take or he somehow bet $100,000 on his team to lose or to not cover or whatever, then all of a sudden, I mean, you're talking about major, major problems. Yeah, so that's what they're trying to avoid.
And the other thing too is that the players are making so much money nowadays.
Yeah,
to even bet on games like they did back in the '60s, and get caught in the middle of all this kind of scandal and all that kind of crap. It's unlikely to happen
in pro sports. Yeah,
pro sports. I mean, like even in college to that point too. I mean, with the amount of money that
nowadays,
being made.
Yeah.
By the way, I don't know if you saw this. But your man, Bryce Young, the quarterback for Alabama, just signed a big deal with BMW of Tuscaloosa.
Oh, nice.
Now, the problem with that is that Nick Saban owns a number of Mercedes dealerships down there.
Well, why is that?
In Tennessee and Alabama. I mean, like,
Why is that a problem,
You
though?
got the head coach doing Mercedes, and you got your starting quarterback doing BMW.
Okay.
I mean, come on. I mean, shouldn't that like a little bit of a knee knocker there?
No, I don't
think so.
No, I don't think so. I think both of them are going to do very, very well.
How about Nick Saban? That guy's got so much money, he now owns dealerships on top of everything else.
Well, why not?
It is unbelievable how much money he has made down there.
You need a place to park your money, as you say.
I mean, it's like Kevin Durant making $500 million.
You got to park your money somewhere.
My man's got to be making some coin.
I'm
As
sure.
they say back in my neighborhood, some bank.
Some bank.
Some bank.
All right,
Yes.
it is Boomer and Gio on the Fan and
Man.
CBS Sports Network. Just getting started on this Tuesday morning. Boomer's got something for you. Then we'll get Jerry in here. He's going to give you an update, everything happening in sports right after this.
How about Julius Randle last night? Finally showed up.
Yeah, big deal.
I don't know why you say that, but
He got
Emmanuel quickly had a hell of a game. I just watched the condensed highlights because I didn't stay up and watch the game. Emmanuel quickly.
If you would have stayed up and watched that game, I would have had to.
I know,
have you
but there's no way.
evaluated.
There's no way.
Yeah.